How are we doing, everyone? Welcome back to Vintage Cars Ireland, and today I'll be discussing and criticising the Nissan 350Z. Firstly, I'm going to show my favourite part of the car, which is the powerful 3.5 litre V6 engine. The engine takes up a tremendous amount of room in that bay, but of course the car is relatively small by modern standards. This is the 2007 version of the 350Z, specifically the Rev Up model, producing around 306 brake horsepower. This is a car that defined affordable performance in the early 2000s, and it still stands the test of time and in my opinion has aged quite well. I'll take this car out for a drive very shortly to see if it's actually any good, and go through the spec of this car in more detail. Of course, the Nissan added Brembo brakes and larger wheels to handle the 306 brake horsepower engine. I'm also a big fan of the tan interior and baseball style gear shifter. I'm going to talk more about the interior itself after testing it out for a while. I parked this car next to my MX-5 to compare the size of the two cars, and to be honest, they're not miles apart. The only modification that I can think of that was done to this car was an aftermarket catback exhaust. You don't want to do full straight through in these cars because it's generally unbearable, but a catback sounds just perfect in my opinion, and you will hear it just how good it is. But for now, I'm going to sit in and take it out for a drive and see just how it handles. The 350Z was Nissan's answer to market-craving Japanese performance with muscle car attitude. The updated 3.5-litre VQ35 HR engine delivered 306 brake horsepower. This model revved higher and pulled harder than the earlier DE models. It has 306 brake horsepower and redlines to 6,800 RPM. It can go 0 to 60 in just 5.5 seconds. Of course, it's rear-wheel drive and has a lovely notchy 6-speed gearbox. I quite like the styling of the car, as it does feel well built and designed. The note from the engine is very distinct. It's quite raspy and raw. It is difficult to drive this car half-heartedly. It just feels like this car has so much to give. You get a lot of feedback from the car, from the waist to the clutch and the mechanical notchiness from the gear shifter. You do need to be mindful of the rear end stepping out on you if you do push it, hence why I'm being rather careful of it here today. The car feels incredibly balanced. The chassis is nice and stiff, and it's complemented with a stiff suspension. A catback exhaust has been fitted to this car, and it does suit it perfectly in my opinion. For the time, the design of the 350Z was quite bold. It has short overhangs with a wide stance and a classic long style hood. The interior is quite simple. The tan interior suits it beautifully, feels very driver focused, and it's only let down in my opinion by the radio, which does look a little bit boring. However, I love the design of the additional 3 gauges in the centre of the dash. These 3 gauges scream Z heritage. The seating is very low and planted, and it's a really lovely driver position. Something that needs to be considered when discussing any car is whether it's reliable or not. But there aren't many issues to report apart from an O-ring in the engine. This little O-ring can fail and cause a loss of oil pressure, but this has been rectified on this car. One of the only drawbacks I've noticed is the poor visibility to the rear end and the thirsty fuel economy, which is to be expected on a car like this. In 2025, it still fits in, being modern enough to drive safely with all the safety features, but still more than enough fun to enjoy. It's certainly a future classic and might be worth picking one up while prices are still reasonable. It's probably one of the nicest all-around cars I've ever driven, offering a great mixture of sportiness and comfort. Thanks once again for everyone who watched. Make sure to leave a comment in the comment section on what you think of these cars, and see you again next week.